On my main channel Vars 1, a common topic for discussion you'll see in videos is that of design. What makes something well designed or what makes something badly designed? The community within League of Legends is often critical towards the competitive healthiness of a champion, item, or strategy, believing its existence proves more detrimental to the game than beneficial. Considering League is frequently given balance adjustments on a routine basis, such criticism can potentially lead to meaningful change in the best case scenario. Smash Ultimate was like this in the beginning, although far less consistently. For the first 2.5 years of the game's timeline, balance adjustments came with every patch to at least attempt to equalize the roster. Following the completion of patch 13.0.1, however, changes have been discontinued, leaving us to make do with any unpleasantries that still remain. So I figured what we could do for today is talk about badly designed characters in Smash Ultimate, going through a few examples to find out what's wrong with them, and hopefully bring to light some of Smash's more underappreciated aspects of balance and design. I think I should open up with the age-old disclaimer that what defines well or badly designed is entirely subjective. More importantly though, it's circumstantial. What I consider a poorly made character may not and often does not necessarily match with your definition. That being said, the way I like to summarize my interpretation of it would be the two central aspects I believe are integral to any healthy competitive game. First aspect, does a character have a win condition that's intuitive, and do they have the means of reaching said win condition reliably? Several members of Smash Ultimate's roster struggle from either not having a clear game plan or having one yet lacking the tools conducive to achieving it. This is especially prevalent in a game like Smash where the cast is balanced on a character-to-character basis and not on a level playing field the way League tries to get every champion as close to a 50% win rate as possible. Therefore, some fighters may get disproportionately more or less to work with. The second aspect would be, does a character's means of achieving their win condition have appropriately equal measures to be stopped? While from a design standpoint I find the first condition to be more important, being a competitive game the second condition may come into play a lot more. Look no further than the sheer volume of complaints towards top characters in Smash and how much they get away with. As stated many times in previous videos, more often than not, it isn't the mechanic, attack, or strategy in and of itself that decides whether it's healthy for the game, rather they're equal measures to deal with it. If say you have a deck of 40 cards comprising rock, paper, and scissors, if there are 20 rock cards and 15 scissor cards but only 5 paper cards, then the deck is poorly balanced in favor of rock. It isn't that rock is overpowered, it's that we have no paper cards to deal with it. With that in mind, I want to take two characters that primarily struggle with the first aspect and two characters that have trouble with the second aspect for this video. Maybe we can do a follow-up episode with more characters if this one does well. By the way, the choices I make for this video are not the worst ones out there, just a few examples, so let's not play whataboutism in the comments. All that said, time to get started. First character will be Wii Fit Trainer. Wii Fit's always been seen as a gimmicky addition to Smash Ultimate. Although the video game Wii Fit is one of the most popular back in the day, it doesn't exactly have a gameplay experience that's synonymous with beating the crap out of each other, unless you count how much running and exercise the characters themselves do. Their moveset's entirely based around real-life workouts and exercise positions, a nice homage to an avatar meant to serve as one's personal trainer, and it does raise interesting use questions on how these postures can translate into actual combat attacks. And while individually I'd say they did a commendable job with each move, even going so far as to add reverse hitboxes for some attacks in line with physics, it doesn't exactly make for a cohesive character. Much of Wii Fit's current playstyle entails continuous and excessive use of the ledge along with header and sun salutations long range, fairly high damage, and wide variety of mix-ups and mind games afforded by them. The reason for this is that Wii Fit has some of the worst effective range in the game for the simple fact that they have some of the most realistic hitboxes. The vast majority of their close quarters hitboxes don't stretch that much further than the animation, making their attacks difficult to land and more importantly space. Coupled with an almost complete lack of intangibility on any of their moves, they're prone to getting outranged or traded against. With deep breathing, most of Wii Fit's attacks do reach high enough levels of power to rival heavyweights, so if and when they do get their shots in, they can exert staggering amounts of pressure, but it still doesn't do anything to change the primary issue of their stubbiness. As a result, Wii Fit has no definitive playstyle in their moveset. They're not fast enough in either speed or frame data to be a rushdown fighter, nor do they have enough slipperiness to play as a hit and runner. Thing is, they're also not a jack of all trades either, as they're unable to play different paces and lack many of the tools you would frequently see on a member of that archetype. For example, Palutena is a jack of all trades in light of her great mobility, passable at a shield game, and good mixture of close, mid, and long range pressure. Wii Fit's almost entirely close and long range pressure, but said close range isn't exactly adequate for what they're limited to. See, close quarters combat thrives on racking up high amounts of damage through combos or overwhelming an opponent's defensive options through speed. Wii Fit does have a few combos, but nowhere near the same extent you'd see on Joker, Fox, or Mario. In the best case scenario, you might land a strike or two in neutral. This is partly why you find Wii Fit players spamming neutral and side B. That's their only way to rack up damage without exposing themselves. Overall, Wii Fit's move pool consists of a hodgepodge of random attacks that might coincidentally work off each other, but overall do not. While I consider them to be underrated, it's perfectly understandable why they're not used very often. They don't have an intuitive gameplay premise, and what few win conditions they are able to pursue can only be done so through suboptimal means. Next character will be Sephiroth. This one might be kind of a hot take, but I consider Sephiroth a very poorly thought out character, both as a result of lack of foresight and because of the source character himself. Even amongst the steadily increasing attack range of fighters with disjoints over the years, Sephiroth easily eclipses Byleth and the Belmonts in terms of sheer range. Not counting Min Min, he has by far the highest non-projectile disjointed range in the game. Troubling his competitive health is that he has too much range, with how massive his Masamune is, reaching a length even greater than his own height. Incorporating that into a moveset in such a way that doesn't cause him to vastly outperform other swordies is next to impossible. As such, they went to great lengths to limit Sephiroth's practical usage of his blade. While he does have some of the longest overall range in Ultimate, he has comparatively poor coverage, with many of his attacks being straight-line swipes or pokes. Sure, his forward air may reach further than Ike or Shulk's fares, but they cover more territory by slashing in an arc. Of course, they did this for the sole purpose of fairness. If Sephiroth's forward and back air swung like Pyra, they would cover far more area than most characters would know what to do with. His coverage is significantly worse than even short-range sword fighters like Roy, which forces him to be incredibly precise with his spacing. Exacerbating this is the overcompensation of frame data on account of his range. This is a universal balancing concept. The more area moves can cover, the slower their frame data is, broadly speaking. But there is a certain point where an attack becomes too slow that no matter how much range it covers, it's no longer practical. In Sephiroth's case, that's a lot of his attacks. Take up air for instance. It's one of the few attacks in his arsenal that actually make use of an arcing swing, and the massive range behind it. But the startup and lag and inability to auto-cancel out of a single hop whatsoever makes it far less effective than similar up airs like Pyra and Corins. This is present all throughout Sephiroth's kit. Being a mid-range fighter, he's supposed to excel at walling enemies out, which is somewhat bolstered by his fast movement, but it's just far too easy to break through his defenses for even the stubbiest characters. Coupled with an almost complete lack of out-of-shield options and being unreasonably lightweight, it's not a surprise why opinions on him have soured greatly over the years. The thing is, to an extent, they have to make him this constrained. I mean, in my humble opinion, they may have been a bit too severe with the amount of limitations they added to balance him out, but when you have a sword bigger than one of the tallest characters in the game, it doesn't matter how fast and efficiently he wields it in his home series. No way in hell would that fly in Smash. It's the very reason Byleth's forward and back airs are straight attacks compared to Cloud's arcing swings. At a certain distance, the range becomes too big that making it into a semicircle attack would just be unfair. He's not completely garbage, mind you, but Sephiroth's a perfect example of what happens when you have so much range, you have to screw the character over in every other aspect just to allow for it to exist. Okay, now let's go over two characters that face issues with the second aspect, beginning with Min Min. This may be confusing to some of you, seeing as I just went over how too much range has to come at the cost of everything else, and that would be true for Min Min if Smash Ultimate was a fair game. And it isn't. Min Min's a much more vulnerable fighter in terms of mobility and recovery than Sephiroth. However, it's made almost irrelevant by the fact that it's damn near impossible to even get your hands on her. Unlike Sephiroth, Min Min has range and coverage, practical coverage at that. Thanks to being able to jump while attacking, even Megawatt and the Dragon Head can cover fairly significant space, while Ram Ram's a straight up war crime with the way it angles upwards. For much of the roster, there's very little if any you can do against her. Even if you can get through one of her arms, she has another one that can break right through you. It would be like if Byleth could do two forward airs one after another. What makes her more annoying to deal with than projectile fighters is that Min Min's attacks are not projectiles, they're just massive disjoints, so they cannot be reflected, and with how far they travel, they can't be countered either. The smash attack versions are also strong enough to break through most weak projectiles, making them that much harder to challenge. All you can do is try, somehow, to break through her line of attack, but even that might not be sufficient. Adding insult to literal injury, Min Min's close quarters game isn't even that bad, so once you do get in range of her, you have to be mindful of ways in which you can be struck back. Key of which being her out-of-shield game in that she actually has one. Ram Ram near out-of-shield is frame 11, not the fastest, but with the full body cover that starts from above, she can even use it preemptively to catch people attacking in the air. For those reckless enough to attack her on shield, she is arguably the best up smash in the game, even after it got nerfed, framing startup with insane verticality that can also reflect projectiles, preventing you from playing the zoning game against her as well. Min Min's always been a frustrating character to fight because despite having her typical strong on-stage game, bad off-stage game, her on-stage game is so oppressive that a measurable portion of the roster simply does not have the means to deal with her comfortably. There's a reason she's top 15 in the game despite her polarizing attributes. The main problem with Min Min is that she goes way too far. When your attacks have enough reach to cover basically the entire length of Smashville, it's just not very fair. A lot of what makes platform fighters so engaging is that of hitboxes, learning how to outmaneuver around your opponent's attacks, and making efficient use of space, in contrast to traditional fighting games where you're almost always near each other probing for an opening. Zoners do have the ability to threaten you from a far distance, but projectiles are naturally predictable and have extra ways to be dealt with, whereas Min does not. And unlike Joker, whose gun can deal damage but not enough to threaten your life, Min can kill you all the way from the other side of the stage. And her ability to steer her arms a bit gives her frankly too much leeway in offstage pressure that doesn't come anywhere near close to balancing themselves out with equal risk. Final character for this video will be Ice Climbers. Objectively speaking, the ICs are by no means public enemy number 1, and I'm aware that we have Steve, Kazuya, and Game & Watch that I can throw in there. But like I said, this video won't be necessarily talking about the most prominent examples, just some examples. Ice Climbers do have their own laundry list of problems to deal with, but it's cancelled out by an equally long laundry list of ways they get to cheat. Half the roster just does not have a way to deal with them whatsoever. Combo characters can frequently struggle against them on account of hit lag being weird when tagging 2 targets, and with grab only latching onto one climber, you can use the other one to freely strike back, something you can also do to intercept characters mid-attack. In addition, while it may result in Nana taking the attack in your place, Ice Climbers effectively have unpunishable attacks on shield. Neutral air can be +2, forward air can be +3, back air can be neutral, and up air is -3 at worst. Granted, Ultimate has safe landing aerials across the board as it is, but no one else in the game has aerials that are positive on shield. Ice Climbers also have no shortage of ways to literally cheat the game. The decent combos are practically inescapable, turning the interaction into a single-player game where the only thing determining if you live or die is a mechanical error from your opponent. That's it, you have no agency. Just the mere presence of an additional hitbox and hurtbox fundamentally alters how you have to play the game against them, and many of them really can't. Like, I'm willing to wager ICs have actual +3 matchups. Their slow and stubby nature is almost a non-issue when a lot of rushdown fighters can't safely attack them no matter how good they are. I suppose you can also apply this to Rosalina and Luma, but Luma is balanced by being far easier to take out and always being vulnerable, whereas Nana, unreliable as she may be, can still be protected and rescued to an extent. I consider ICs one of, if not the biggest matchup checks in the game. Not matchup check as in do you know how to fight them, but matchup check in that some characters just do not have a way to stop them, requiring a superhuman effort on their part to win. In practice, this is also counterbalanced by ICs themselves having some of the worst matchups in the game too. Against Cloud, Min, or Sephiroth for example, the odds of you getting in against them is close to 0. In a way, Ice Climbers are problematic in both aspects, where they simultaneously have no clear game plan on how to beat their opponent outside of cheese, while also having tools and attributes that are so oppressive their opponent can't do anything back to them either. They're just a really messy character overall, definitely more of a casual addition, not a competitive one. Anyways, those are some examples of badly designed characters in my opinion. I want to reiterate that badly designed does not always equate to being practically bad. Sometimes a character can be badly designed for being too overtuned or overloaded, while another can be badly designed for having conceptual gameplay flaws. So barring the obvious ones like Steve, Kazuya, and Sonic, who else do you think's a badly designed character? Feel free to share in the comments down below. That's going to be it for today, so if you enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe would be much appreciated. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other discussion videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.